Ya lo hace. Pierna derecha, directo al arco. ¡Golazo! ¡Golazo!
The world of football with a soccer perspective. This is Soccer Today with Duane, Rollins and Kevin Laramee. Live on the Sports Podcasting Network.
And good day, good night, and welcome to Soccer Today for Wednesday, May 23rd, 2018. I'm getting confused in my dates. It's that type of week, Duane. I'm all confused. Soccer's finished in England. In Europe, there's only Champions League left this Saturday, which I'm starting to get excited by, but my team's not there. But today on Wednesday, Duane, there's a lot of talk about Piatti since yesterday, since our show, but since Joey Saputo's remarks on 98.5 FM Monday night, a lot of people are speculating around the league saying, look, I'll take him. Send it to me. I'll give some money.
No, well, I would imagine he would be very valuable in the MLS market. I guess the question there would be, would Montreal want to sell him in league? I think that they perhaps would want to sell him out of the league, and then, you get the money, you have your initial, it's like ripping a Band-Aid, right? Like, oh, he's gone, and people are going to be mad for a couple weeks, but they don't see him. They don't have him come back in and, score a goal on you, right? That's not what you want to see for sure.
Yeah, that was a big difference. But there's a big announcement made this morning in London. We expected this for the last few days. The big name that was rumored over the last few weeks was Mikel Arteta, former player for Arsenal. But no, it's former PSG manager Emery, Unai Emery, who's taken over. Why not replace a Frenchman by another Frenchman with a similar pedigree, coming in here with some questions and maybe some criticism, and not a coach at the level that we were expecting, maybe. He just goes PSG, but let's just face it. PSG under Emery was good because of PSG, not because of Emery. So there's a big difference there. And there's a lot of similarities in my mind from the mid-90s when Arsene Wenger did take the job. Isn't it similar to you too?
Well, I mean, the obvious reason is that they're both French, obviously, but yeah, there's a feel for that. It's outside the box a little bit. It's not, a super name as I think some Arsenal fans were expecting, and I think some Arsenal criticism out there are suggesting that they're going a little cheaper with this one. But really, who is going to come in? Who's going to come in and instantly fix this? You need to have someone who's on the same page as the board. This is a club that has traditionally liked to do things conservatively, we'll call it. And if you don't have that same sort of mix-up, that same sort of understanding, then you could just run into problems. The question would be whether this is a short-term hire or a long-term hire, and that's the one area that I would say that maybe it does suggest to me that it might not be for the longest term. But then again, who's going to be as long as the previous manager, right? You don't want to be the guy that follows the guy. That's the same, right?
True, but it's not like Sir Alex Ferguson. When Mr. Sir Alex Ferguson left Manchester United, he just won the league, and he was still viewed, and he was still on that pedestal. Arsene Wenger has been off that pedestal for at least 4 years. The wheels have fallen off the wagon, and the hashtag Wenger out has made itself seen around the world. So because of that, you don't have the same pressure that you would have if it would have been winning a title or leaving after 4 or 5 seasons of success, So you don't have that pressure of filling in the shoes of the guy. The guy made the shoes a bit looser before leaving, so you're kind of happy. You're like, okay, at least I'm gonna get a chance, maybe.
They're big shoes to fill because they made them looser. I like that. No, for sure. Ferguson left that club, and it's an interesting comparison that because he did leave the club on top, but it was the most bizarre title ever, and a lot of people could argue that it might have set them back a couple of years for winning that title. But I guess a title, whether it's points in the board or points in the pocket, I guess a trophy on the shelf is a trophy over the head or something. I don't know.
I'll take the title. Okay, tell me that I'm gonna have a title and maybe not have Champions League the year after, like Chelsea. I'll take it. I've took 2016. I'm happy. 2017. I'm happy with it.
Yeah, no, fair enough. I guess my blue is coming out a little bit when I dismissed the title, importance of winning it. But there's no doubt that a lot of all the chips were played that season for United, and they managed to get it done. And as you just said, that's good. They got the title. The last one they won since. But with Wenger, we're gonna find out soon enough whether he was the problem, right? Whether Wenger out was just a meme, or whether it was something that needed to happen.
Well, the thing is, it's not going to be just Wenger. I think you're going to see a big change in the core of players. The Koscielnys, you know, that generation, it already has started, but that generation of like Sanchez is gone. Ozil, there's going to be a rebuilding of some sort, or an influence of Emery eventually with this team after the World Cup. And that's the interesting part, though, and it's always fascinating to me. And now it's the first World Cup, Duane, that we cover soccer at that level. 4 years ago, we were covering it, but I remember being on a beach doing podcasts with you 4 years ago. Now we're in the studio, busy almost 24/7, watching the beautiful game. This is what fascinates me. This World Cup and the transfers coming in after. You kind of have an extra bonus combined if you're a player to show yourself. An extra week or month of being in the display window of a store and trying to sell yourself. You have a month of that, right? So that's going to be interesting. Players out of nowhere, like James Rodriguez 4 years ago, will warrant a big transfer and big money after the next month and a half.
Well, yeah, you always have to buyer beware when you're buying off a World Cup performance. What was the keeper's name that I'm forgetting now from 4 years ago?
Bravo? The one that signed with your club?
No, well, yeah, there's that, but there's
Ochoa with Mexico.
Yeah, Navas did pretty good for himself out of the World Cup, so I guess it's not completely unbetold that you can have a great World Cup and propel that into a great club career. But you always have to be a little bit. You have to give it a couple sober second thought to whether you want to buy a player off 2-3 weeks performance in June for his country, but. Yeah, look, absolutely. When you're talking about Arsenal, the question is, where is Arsenal? What is Arsenal right now? This is a once great club, but stress on the once. It's been.
Why is Gamora? No, you haven't seen Avengers. Why is Gamora? Who is Arsenal? Why is Arsenal? Well, no, that's something totally different. But you're right. Arsenal now, with the reshuffling of the establishment of the hierarchy in the Premier League because of money. Manchester City taking over, Manchester United reclaiming their not their title, but reclaiming their spot as second best, at least for now.
Yeah, they were 19 points back.
I said second. I didn't say first. Don't worry. I know they were far behind. Everyone was like a quarter of a season behind Manchester City. It's too bad you can't carry over that quarter season advantage you had, because you would win every year. But no, so with those two clubs, Manchester on top of the Premier League, two clubs, this will probably be replicable next year. Chelsea should have a better season because no Champions League and maybe a new manager or a new superstar taking over for Eden Hazard. Something's got to give. Hazard is either staying and Conte's leaving, or vice versa. Speaking of Vice, we'll talk about Miami Vice later on. But it's a little segue. But for me, it's going to be how Tottenham answers next year. How can Liverpool parlay the success of the Champions League to a top 2 spot in the Premier League next year and continue to have the same level of success in play. That will be interesting too, and that's where you'll know where Arsenal is. Because right now, Arsenal, in my mind, are behind those 4 teams. Chelsea, Arsenal are very similar right now. 5th, 6th. It's going to be difficult to be better than that if you don't spend a lot of money this summer. So that being in mind, what does Arsenal need to do to be better than the 2 Manchester clubs, Tottenham and Liverpool, which clearly for me right now are the top 4 in the Premier League?
Yeah, I mean, when you're looking at trying to handicap the Premier League, I remember having conversations last year immediately following the final or following the season, and thinking to ourselves, oh, how could Chelsea be caught? And well, they were caught. So it's a little hard to handicap without seeing what the transfer window brings. But it's certainly, I just don't know what Arsenal is anymore. As I said a moment ago, I just don't know if they know what they are. For a long time, they were, quote unquote, that fourth place trophy. That was what they were about. They were a team that always played in the Champions League, always got to the round of 16, always lost there, finished fourth. That was Arsenal. Arsenal of the last decade, really. Are they ready to, be proud and reclaim what they were in the 2000s? I don't know. I don't know if this is a move that's going to put them there, or whether they're happy selling that place out and getting back to the Champions League. Is that what they want to do? Because it's going to be very telling what they do in the window. It's going to be very telling to see, as I said a minute ago, whether or not it was Wenger's conservatism that prevented them from going all in the transfer market, or whether that was a product of a club philosophy that he just happened to be the man that was in charge of. So we're going to find that out. We're going to find that out quickly.
Because when you look at Unai Emery, when we think of him for a second, because we didn't really talk a lot about him, because that's how he is. He's a bit gray. He's a bit beige. He's a bit bland. No? Is it just me? Like, he's quiet. He's there. Not saying he's lacking personality. Maybe we'll discover his personality with Arsenal. But at PSG, the club was so big, especially with the arrival of Neymar in the biggest transfer in the history of the sport on this planet. So yeah, you had a lot of attention outside of the manager in this club, and the having to manage the egos of Cavani at the same time as Di Maria, as Neymar, as Thiago Alves, as all those great players that are now part of PSG. And PSG just looked okay. Yeah, they won the league with about 105 points ahead. That wasn't that bad, actually. They were challenged a bit this year. At least they win it, not like last year where they lost it. And that's exactly it. He lost the league to Monaco last year. At least they won it this year. But nothing spectacular. The way they played was a bit underwhelming. It was fun to watch at some point earlier in the season. I remember you and I talking about in October, November, where we were impressed by PSG, but they were beating minnows in the grand scheme of things. And when it came down to real life, got knocked out in the quarters once again in Champions League and did not achieve their target, and it cost Emery his job. Can he bounce back in a club that has less financial means than PSG? Let's face it, it's a smaller club in the grand scheme of the world of football. Can he, with the knowledge of the players that he knows either in the French market, English market, around the world, can he build a club for less money that's more successful than he has done in the past? That's why I do have concerns, but good thing I'm not an Arsenal fan.
Well, yeah, managing PSG is like, I don't know, playing FIFA with a cheat code, really. You're able to buy whoever you want within the context of that league. And I think I could probably manage PSG to the Ligue 1 title. And the fact that they didn't win one.
I can manage them by text from here.
Yeah.
I could put me on
11th.
Skype.
Go.
Just, that VAR video review, just turn it on, put Skype on that thing. I'll call in, put a microphone in your ear or something. I'll manage PSG. Sure, I can do that. Neymar, go score.
Put the ball in the net. There you go. But yeah, as you said, I distinctly remember back October, November last year, us arguing or wondering whether PSG was the best team in the world at that point, because they looked like it in the Champions League. But as soon as they ran into Real Madrid, game over.
Done. End game. We're in the end game now.
Well, so it'll be interesting to see. It is. Look, maybe it works out, but I was never one. I think that Wenger's time had come at Arsenal, clearly, but I wasn't someone who thought that he was the main problem. I think the main problem in Arsenal is their refusal to completely embrace. They're the Leafs. They're MLSE before MLSE started to spend money. That's what I've always said about Arsenal. I compared them to that. And, Leafs fans Arsenal fans are going to love that comparison. But what I mean is they're this incredibly rich club that just will not completely flex its muscle for corporate reasons. And that's in their rights, obviously, as an owner. But there's no indication that ownership philosophy is going to change, that they're going to completely turn the tap on and go for it in a way that they're capable of it. I've always felt that Arsenal spent to their profits. If we truly had if financial fair play was a real thing and they actually were enforcing it in any real way, Arsenal would be a power because they are an incredibly wealthy club. They're in the biggest football city in the world, in my opinion, in London. They are a massive club there. They have a huge stadium. They have very high ticket prices, and they make a lot of money, but they don't necessarily spend the same amount of money that they make on the product on the pitch. And we're going to find out quickly whether that was because of Wenger, as I said, or whether that's the board philosophy and it's going to continue.
Yep, fascinating stuff, and we'll have a response to those questions and concerns next year after the World Cup. But there's a little tournament before that World Cup that starts in 22 days now. 22 days.
Oh my God. Okay.
22 days, Duane. Anyways, we'll be back after a quick break to talk about Nacho Piatti. To sell or not to sell? That is the question.
You are listening to Soccer Today. Follow us on Twitter at Soccer Today SPN and like our Facebook page, facebook.com/Sports Podcasting Network. You can find the podcast version of all the shows we do on iTunes, Apple Podcast, Google Play Store, TuneIn Radio, iHeartRadio, and anywhere you get your podcast.
22 days, like I was saying, till the World Cup. World Cup Today live. Right here. 10 minutes after the first game, Duane, Rollins, and myself will be talking about the two games of the day before, the games of that day, give us our impressions, and I can't wait to see a game played in Volgograd and see if anyone seats in those damn stands that are outside of the stadium. That's still so awesome in like a bad way for me.
Russia, man. Only in Russia. There's a Twitter account that's called Only in Russia, and you should follow it. They just take photos of random things like, a car in a house and stuff, like in an apartment.
Speaking of Russia.
Stuff. Only in Russia.
Did you see it a few weeks ago? Vice, presented a slapping tournament that happens in Russia. Speaking of slaps and Zlatan, slaps are kind of in our vernacular over the last 2 days. And in Russia, there was a slapping contest for hours. People are slapping themselves silly and breaking their bones and jaws, and it's glorified. And there's a winner who wins $1,000 for 5 months in the hospital with a broken jaw. I don't think it's worth it. But only in Russia, I guess.
That begs the question: how much would you be willing to be slapped for $1,000? I don't know. It's that's a strange thing.
If it's Zlatan just that way, maybe I'll take $1,000 if it's Monday. Hey, and trust me, Michael Petrasso was seen. The number 24 of the Montreal Impact has been seen across the world. Every headline from TMZ to The Guardian to France Football Weekly to Le Dauphiné to Australian and Italian newspaper. Swedish newspaper was on the first page. Yeah, it kind of made the headlines. Michael Petrasso, superstar.
There you go. It reminds me of names escape me, but it was another Canadian that went in on Beckham. It doesn't matter. But at any rate, yes, that's how Canadian footballers get famous: is they attack or they are involved in incidents with others. A lot of Zlatan press today, actually, and there's the rest of the world is starting to see that maybe he's not playing that well over here. And it's an interesting sort of phenomena that is happening, Kevin.
Well, yeah, but I want to talk about Nacho Piatti for a second. You put out a poll yesterday, and people can see the result of the poll scrolling on the bottom of their screens right now. If you're listening to us on audio, on podcast, first of all, thank you. And yes, 39%, no, 36%, and maybe, dépend, probably, maybe, who knows, 25%. A very spread responses, not one clear-cut winner. But what that tells me is whatever your response to the poll is, people's got an opinion on it, and they have a reasoning behind it. You can say, no, you can't sell Piatti because he's the face of your club, he's your best player, and he's a superstar, and we have seen him score a bunch of goals. He's involved in 45%, a little bit over 45% of the goals of the Montreal Impact this season. How can you sell Nacho Piatti? People are saying, no, you can't sell him. Or maybe they're saying, yes, you can sell him. $6 million, you put that aside, you get 3 players of $2 million, you spread the wealth a bit, you increase the depth, and maybe you're able to replicate next year the success of a Red Bulls team where it's built around the collective and not the individual, and maybe saying 25% depending of which or not, or saying, look, yes, but only if we're going to do a good move with that money, which then is like wanting to get the money of a sell before actually doing the sell, so it's kind of like not even possible. Duane, should or shouldn't the Impact sell Ignacio Nacho Piatti?
Oh, depends. I would have answered the third option on that poll, which it was interesting to me how evenly split the votes were on that. Quite a few votes on that one too. Got a lot of interest. It depends. It really depends what you're going to do with the money. They should not sell him if they do not have a plan in place. That is how I'll answer it. So I lean more towards no. This is your salesman. This is the face of your team in a market that struggles sometimes. Joey Saputo's talking about how they struggle financially. Well, you get rid of your worst player, or your best player, I should say.
It's not going to get any better anytime soon if you don't replace that player with a name. And the hypothesis that I mentioned yesterday, and it's true, Duane, you can have a recognizable name in the world of soccer that's cheaper than $6 million. That is and big enough that it actually makes a dip in the revenue and in the ticket sales and in the shirt sales. And if that's your goal, you're in the reconstruction, you're rebuilding of your club anyways. So maybe there's that thought process behind it, saying, look, yesterday I was talking about Torres, and we know it's not going to happen. He's actually in negotiations, and it's getting quite advanced apparently with the Chicago Fire. Poor Fernando Torres. I hope he doesn't go there because I like him. Anyways, you'll have fun chasing rats at Bridgeview. Toyota Park, yes, there's rats there. When I'm talking about a name, a Rooney example, but for Montreal, a player with a name recognition, maybe a Giroud or maybe a Gignac, those players are maybe a little cheaper than a Nacho Piatti. It's because Nacho Piatti knows his value. He's like, oh, look, I'm a top 5 player in the league here. I want to be paid like it, so that's why he's paying $6 million. He's top 10, top 5 salary in the league, which he deserves. But did the Montreal Impact make a mistake in the grand scheme of things when they already have bad contracts to a certain amount of players, and then you handicap your money allocated to players with a big contract like that? Maybe there's something to it. And Joey Saputo was not necessarily saying this for no reasons. He was laying the groundworks, getting people ready for a bad news. He was telling you to sit down before he needs to announce you that you guys need to maybe see other people.
Yeah, look, again, you got to do your homework. You have to know exactly who you're going to bring in, and you have to make sure that player you're going to bring in is going to match his production. Piatti, what are the impact without them? Like, it could be an ugly season.
Philly, and even Philly's better than the Impact right now, so I guess they're just themselves without Piatti, so I guess it's par for the same, maybe.
Yeah.
Can you be further? You can't be further than 11th. So once Montreal is below DC, which might happen in a week or two, then where else? What else? Can you go any lower? No.
No, I mean, no. You can go TFC 2013 low, I guess, and be pathetic for a couple years running, but you hope that doesn't happen. Unless you're a bitter Impact hater, I suppose. But no, I can't. I watched that game on Monday, and there wasn't much to watch there. I mean, just being honest. And I'm thinking, like, as an Impact fan, a potential Impact fan, why would you go out to the stadium? And Montreal's not a market that suffers fools gladly, right? They'll sit at home and scream at their TV about the Habs before they're going to go waste money and waste their time in their mind watching a team without any sort of salesman there, as I said. So, but there is an argument to be made to sell him, and that argument directly relates to getting younger and maybe adding a couple pieces for the money that you save by getting rid of that big piece. But you damn well better almost immediately make that move, because otherwise you're really going to suffer on the pitch, I think.
Or you might need to make that move before you announce everyone that you sold Piatti. So you might have to work on the sell of Piatti, get that figured out, and turn around and already have your players lined up and already have their names and T-shirts and jerseys ready so you can announce, but like, all right, we sold Nacho, but wait, whoa, wait. Don't riot. Don't throw rocks. Stop egging my house. We actually have a few players for you guys that you know, so you can settle down. I think there's a possibility that happens.
Let me ask you this. I mean, obviously, he just made this announcement on a Montreal radio station, 2 nights ago or last night?
Literally after the game, so Monday around 6:30 p.m.
Yeah, what kind of play is it getting outside of the bubble in Montreal? Is it getting...
Oh, geez, people that in La Presse, there's a big article today about Mark Cassivi, who was a player in like the amateur ranks that played against like old stars of the Montreal Impact, Mauro Biello and company in the mid 80s, right? Late 80s, early 90s. And he wrote a big article saying, "Oh, Piatti," and saying, "Don't do that." Basically, gist of it. And it is getting a lot of play. TV shows are talking about it that usually are not talking about it. The talk radio shows and, you know, those sit-down TV shows that think they're on radio, but it's a TV show too. Basically what I'm doing on YouTube now, but on the TV.
Yeah.
They are talking about should Montreal sell Piatti or not. And I'm actually interested about the opinion of some people, because some people are seeing this as more gray than black and white. And yes, if you sell him and you have a plan, this can be beneficial for this club long term. You might be gaining a lot of money in TAM and GAM that could be really useful for next year if you do trade him in league. If you transfer him out of league, you do get a big amount of money now with the change of the rules this year that happened. This might be the time to actually sell Nacho Piatti, make him happy, because look, does he look happy right now? Yeah, no, frustrations can be seen quite easily, and when Nacho's happy, he's a go-lucky guy, and the ball is like candy, and he distributes it like he's at a park with his children. But when he's not happy, that ball is a magnet, and his foot is metal, and it never leaves his foot. And guess what we've seen the last 4 days? It's not that difficult. Nacho's a bit transparent as a player. Not with his mouth, with his feet.
All right. Well, if history tells us anything, they're probably going to trade him for a bag of pucks to the Colorado Avalanche. But
thanks, Duane.
Sorry.
Yeah, thank you.
That too soon? Still too soon?
Still too soon. Like 96 was not that long ago.
There you go. All right. We should talk about Miami.
I thought you were going to say we should talk about the Capitals. They're playing Game 7 tonight.
Don't remind me. Siri told me they're a goal and a half underdogs, so I'm mad at Siri right now.
Did she wake you up that way? Like, good morning, Duane. This is May 23rd. The Capitals are a goal and a half underdog tonight versus the Tampa Bay Lightning. Have a nice day.
Something like that. I'm numb to the pain there, so we'll move on. I'm just preparing myself for the worst because, it's the Capitals and it's the playoffs, and they're 5 games away from the Stanley Cup with an expansion team in front of them. But can't think that way.
Hey, you can say that at least if you get there, you got an expansion team in front of you. So maybe it's going to be easy. Maybe it's the third time. But there's a Cinderella story there too. So who knows? Who knows? I've never bet against Cinderella. And the house always wins. Speaking of house, Miami Freedom? ? Apparently that's the name and the logo that we have seen floating around on the side of buildings in Miami, thanking David Beckham and a group of ownership that for bringing potentially an MLS team to Miami. But Duane, a lot of people are not happy with freedom, especially not in 2018 in the United States of America. It might be a more controversial term than we imagine, and not a term that people can gather around and unite. Like, it's not a uniting term right now in the United States. Let's just put it this way. Why not just go easy? Why making things hard? The Miami Vice? You put a blue and purple pastel jersey. It's going to sell like hotcakes. It's going to be full in the stands. You call Doc Johnson and you say, come on, do the first kickoff. You got yourself a show here.
It would be cheese ball, but yeah, it'd be spectacular cheese ball. I'm of two minds with the freedom thing. And the first it's objectively a terrible name. However, I almost like the idea that they're going back to the North American style of city name nickname to name a team rather than calling them, I don't know,
Cavalry?
I'm trying to think of a city, Benfica Miami or something, right? Like that's the silliness that continues on in this world right now. But they did tack the FC on it though. It is Freedom FC, so there is that.
Huh.
I don't know. You got to write. Vice it's got to be the Vice. They've got to be the Vice, and they've got to wear pink.
Pink and blue, like pastel, and you have the Adidas colors to blend it in. The 3 strips, 3 stripes. That would be fun to see. Come on, make it easy. And you build a stadium Art Deco. You make yourself a golden with arches that you paint different colors, and you have music playing 24/7 in the stadium. There's things you could do here. The stadium is lit in pink, of course, and it's on Sunset Drive. Yeah, it's on Sunset Drive in Miami. Why not? On close to South Beach, you got yourself a concept here, and you're coherent with your market. Why not? Why make it difficult? Why blue and baby blue and call it Freedom? I don't know.
Yeah, because we need more blue. No.
Yeah, that's one.
Pink. There's so much potential here. Embrace who you are, Miami. Embrace who you are.
Wait, we talked about this a few years ago on a different show, I imagine. But in sports in general, the colors blue and red, the amount of those colors in the amount of clubs or sports entities that has those colors around the world, it's mind-boggling. So why again blue? Come on, I love blue. Look at my studio. I love myself some blue. Give me other colors.
I watched on Netflix the documentary The Carter Effect, which I highly recommend if you're a basketball fan, about Vince Carter and his time in Toronto. And I was having so much nostalgia for those purple jerseys. Why the hell did they ever go back to? I know why they went to red. They want to be quote unquote Canada's team, but no, man, purple was great. It was original. Yeah, they were a little ugly, but that's fine. Ugly is good. Embrace the ugly.
Why not? If you embrace your identity. I don't know where I was going with that sentence, but yeah, embrace your identity, just period.
I just want to have fun. I want them to be called the Miami Vice and have like terrible 80s jerseys. It'd be amazing, just amazing. Imagine if the supporters, they all dress up like Don Johnson in the crowd. It'd be fun. Everyone would enjoy themselves. Yeah, we're talking about names, so it doesn't really matter. But
yeah, no, it really doesn't really matter. So that is always interesting. All right, let's talk
about jerseys, and yeah, it's why everyone gets worked up about it. Everyone's a fashion expert when a new jersey comes out. It slays me.
I agree. All right, let's take a very quick break. When we come back, we'll wrap the show up and set the table for tomorrow.
You are listening to Soccer Today. Follow us on Twitter at SoccerTodaySPN and like our Facebook page, facebook.com/Sports Podcasting Network.
$2 a month gives you access to the Two Solitudes Soccer Podcast, a exclusive show for patrons only that can be found at patreon.com/sports podcasting network. $2 a month goes a long way into the production of this show, and with your help we can continue to produce quality audio and videos for you wherever you want to see and hear them, and all that and more at patreon.com/sports podcasting network. Last night, Duane, there was a friendly at Bank of California Stadium, a sellout crowd of over 23,000 people to see the Wonder Kid himself, Christian Pulisic, coming back, quote unquote, home. He's not from LA, but coming back home in the United States to play a friendly against LAFC.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't understand. Friendlies. Yeah, this is exactly how I always react to these friendly games. And look, they had the sellout there. They weren't selling the games out other than the opener, the opening game there. That was the only one they sold out. So I get why they do these things. Dortmund coming over after the season to play this game. I mean, it's the 1 week where they have the players trapped, but they, I guess it's a trip to LA for them. That's probably how they looked at it, but I don't know what the purpose is play. I don't know your thought. I mean, you obviously saw the All-Star game last year in Chicago. It was a good time. It's a good sort of situation. I don't necessarily disagree with. I don't really like All-Star games, but if they're going to have one, I don't mind the format that they do right now, because at least it does offer the opportunity for, networking and things like that.
And there's other thing than just the game. It's not even about the game. It's more about pomp and circumstances and discovering a city and everyone meeting up and having a drink and discussions together and having almost a convention. Like, we don't have an MLS convention every year where everyone gathers. We don't have our Comic-Con. You know what I mean? There's no Soccer Con, which maybe we just found an idea that we should talk about, Duane. Maybe we should organize a Soccer Con and maybe travel across the United States with a few bunch of All-Stars in the back of a van and maybe make some money. That's another idea for a different day.
Yeah, well, the draft kind of plays that role.
The draft, the MLS Cup, and the All-Star Game, this is a bit their purposes.
Yeah, the MLS Cup is different now that it's in the host. Obviously, I've been to the last two, but I was also at the 2010 one. The 2010 one was much more diverse in terms of people came from all over. And it was kind of nice, and I got that. So I don't disagree with living that, but we're kind of off topic on whether the purpose of, Dortmund 1, LAFC 1 means anything. And the answer to that is no, other than the fact that some more people got to see that stadium last night.
And some people got to see Christian Pulisic, and some people got to see some decent soccer. That's what Bob Bradley was talking about after the game. And look, it was a fun night at the park, fun night outside, nice weather, nice players, nice kids, good soccer game. Why not? It's a Tuesday night in L.A. There's always something to do in L.A., you're going to tell me? This was one of them.
I've talked to players, younger players, about these games in the past, and their reaction to them is less critical to them than the fans often. We're the trophies not friendlies, right? Like, that's a big thing for the fan base, the hardcore fan base anyway. But a lot of the younger guys do get something out of playing the big teams. I mean, I understand that, I suppose, if you're a 22-year-old kid from Canada that's, breaking into playing MLS or US, I just use Canada because I'm here, and you're seeing whatever, Manchester United in front of you, it's probably pretty exciting. I suspect that. And a lot of them probably look at it as an opportunity to, demonstrate their skills. But I've watched enough of these games up close that, the European teams, I remember the City game, and I did go to the City TFC game. I stood way up in the upper deck and I watched it, and I can still remember on the final whistle, Sergio Aguero, this is a similar one to this one. It was 2 days after the season ended. Sergio Aguero turned on his heel and was out down that tunnel within a half second of the final whistle. So I look at that and I think about that from their perspective is, why are you making me do this?
Like, get me out of here. I want to go to the beach, lay down, especially this year. I have a World Cup coming, at least for Pulisic. He knows he doesn't even have to take the plane back to Dortmund. Like, I'll stay here. I'm good for a few weeks. Just give me a few weeks. I'm off until July 15 anyways, because we're not going to the World Cup. So.
Not that he has a World Cup to prepare for, no. Look, I don't know. It's always worth having this conversation once a year, but I'm seeing less and less of these things happening. They used to be so common. There 10 of them would happen in a week, but you look at the schedule this year, and there's just not a lot of teams doing them, and there's a lot of teams that are opting out of playing these things altogether. It's really only the teams that struggle. They're either new, like LAFC, and I do get it from a new perspective. I remember, TFC playing Benfica a month into their existence, and the place was packed, and all the Portuguese people were there, and it made a lot of sense to bring a club like that over. That
at that point, you reached out. Yeah, at that point, because you make your own city discover TFC. Because of the big diaspora of Portuguese fans, especially Benfica fans, or FC Porto fans that are going to come cheer on TFC against Benfica, or Lisbon fans, right? This is possible, and at that point, it makes sense. Lyon, when it came to Montreal in 13, 14, well, it made Rémi Garde discover this city, and look who's the coach of the Montreal Impact now. So you can say that friendly against Lyon in 2012 not only saw Gignac play in Montreal, and I saw Hugo Lloris play in front of me, and I saw other great names that played here and enjoyed it and maybe laid the groundwork of some of them deciding to play over here, but made a coach discover the league. And look who's coaching Montreal now. So there is some soft benefits sometimes in those friendlies, but it depends on what part of the history of your club. For LAFC, in a way, with the amount of pump and circumstance that they did put already in different markets, Spanish markets especially, in LA, but in the Spanish community, was very, very engaged with the 3252s as well, a lot. But to make the United States soccer fan of the region of Los Angeles discover LAFC, bringing Pulisic to Bank of California, not a bad idea. If those 3,000 people had fun, maybe 5,000 of them comes back for a few games this season, and you got yourself a boosted attendance, maybe.
Yeah, no, and that's what I'm going to give a pass to a club like LFC in its first year, for sure. Where I have issue with it is if TFC were booking a bunch of them, I'd be like, yeah, why? What are you doing this for? And it'd just be a money grab at that point. By the way, that Benfica friendly in 2007 was literally the worst game of soccer I've ever watched live. It was so bad.
Makes a lot of sense. Like, yeah, we're not gonna try to hurt ourselves here.
0-0. It was a 0-0 game, and I still remember a Benfica player in the corner taking a corner kick right in front of us, just laughing. They were just like, we're out for a run in the sun, and they're paying us for this. It was a terrible game, but it didn't.
We're getting paid to do this? Yes, you are. Let's finish the show with this, Duane. It's not on the agenda, but we haven't talked about it since it happened. Congratulations to Lyon, Women's Champions League winner.
And it's a great program there. The French Ligue 1 is a wonderful women's league. The Champions League is becoming increasingly the biggest prize in women's football. The model, the European model, as opposed to the NWSL model. When we talked to Stephanie Labbe a couple weeks ago, I think we really got a good indication on why I think, and for the reasons that she talked about, how she was sort of trapped out and didn't have the ability to move to a different club. I think that's why the NWSL is going to need to make some changes. Otherwise, I think it will take the backseat to particularly Ligue 1 and also the Premier League in England, or the Super League, I guess they call it. It's advancing every year. And you look at the investment, not to make this City focused, but I think it's the sort of reference to City I made today. But the amount of money they're pumping into their women's program there, the amount of money you see at clubs like PSG, at Lyon, it's wonderful to see. And it's only going to get bigger. The what's holding it back right now is a lack of TV access in the rest of the world. And as soon as they figure that out, and as soon as the Women's Champions League games are on TSN at 3 p.m, is when that's going to blow up. And it's only a matter of time, in my opinion. It's a great financial opportunity for someone out there that wants to go get those rights, in my opinion.
Yeah. When you look at the Ronda Rouseys of the world and the world of combat fighting, if you're looking at growth of sports, where is there growth left to have in a sport itself? It's on the women's side. There's a lot of potential there, and we have seen it in other sports. Once treated like a sport and just like another athlete, just like another event, and not just have its own timing and its own community. I'm not saying it's wrong. What I'm saying is, like, you're right. Put it at the right time slot. Put the energy behind it that you do for the real, not the real, just the way I talk. I know, right? Just the way I talk is the same thing. Same for me. Put the same energy behind the Women's Champions League like you do the Men's Champions League, and guess what? People will embrace it. If you portray it the right way, people will perceive it the same way.
The biggest thing holding back women's sports is the treatment and perception that it gets, that it's second class, and that stems from just straight misogyny in some cases, but I think it stems just from
ignorance.
Ignorance, yeah, really. It's not always malicious. There is some people out there that are just misogynists, as I said, but there are. There's a lot of potential. I've often dreamt of winning the lottery and buying all the women's soccer rights in the world and putting them on a website where you pay $10 a month to get access for it, because I guarantee you that is a money-making opportunity if you can do that. Getting the rights might not be cheap, though, so I need to win that lottery. Or really crank up the Patreon, guys. Yeah. $1 million a day will go a long way.
Exactly. Speaking of Patreon, we'll finish with this. You can subscribe for $2 a month on our Patreon to get access to the exclusive Canadian soccer show called the Two Solitude Soccer Podcast, where Canadian Premier League and Canadian soccer only can be discussed. There can be other nationalities of guests than Canadians, yes, but they need to be talking about Canadian soccer. That's the importance of this show, is for Canadian soccer, by Canadian soccer, with Canadian soccer in mind, with Canadian soccer players in mind too. And we're going to have a great interview on this week's show with Steven Sandor of the 11.ca, who was at the Cavalry FC launch last week and has more details for us concerning the brand new team in Calgary. And we'll have a discussion with Duane and I as well about the possibilities of a interleague competition cup style between Liga MX Segundo, maybe the USL D2, D3, and maybe even the Canadian Premier League. All that and more. And as always, you can follow Duane on Twitter at 24th Minute, myself at Kev Laramee, and the show at Soccer Today SPN. And as always, until next time, have a great soccer.
You can find the podcast version of all the shows we do on iTunes, Apple Podcast, Google Play Store, TuneIn Radio, iHeartRadio, and anywhere you get your podcast.